What's going on, everyone? Jeremy here from the Quartering, and it's been a while since I've talked about anything video game related. And Halo is a massive property. When I grew up, Halo was synonymous with Xbox. I've owned them both, so let's not do the console war thing. And now that the Master Chief Collection came out on Steam, I can play it on my PC. I never could play any FPS games. I grew up playing it on mouse and keyboard, so I just never could understand how to play it on a controller. I'm just trash on a controller. So I play on mouse and keyboard. But I know that Halo is such a huge cultural phenomenon that not only obviously the games, but the kind of the metaverse, the world around it, the lore around it, has fans that span, the last 20 years. When I saw that there would be yet another TV adaptation for a video game, I was concerned. And it looks like my concerns were true. I saw what they did with The Witcher 3, or with The Witcher. Witcher came out to Netflix. They're like, we don't really care about the video games. The show is nothing like the video game, and it's fine, but it's not as good as it would be if you spent more time fighting monsters. The same will be true for Halo. The same has been true for most Resident Evil movies, although those kind of stand on their own. But this is a huge problem. The money that they're spending with, I think, more than 20 million, it's 10 or 20 million per episode. 90 million already invested, 265 script drafts. And the show is here and people don't like it. By the way, if you're looking for a new gaming PC, I'm not going to run the ad. Just metapcs.com/code the quartering, and you'll save 5%. They're my most important sponsor. It all started with this article from Variety, which came out a few days ago, and there was one kind of stunning reveal, and it was this quote: "We didn't look at the game. We didn't talk about the game." Halo Season 1 showrunner Steve Kane says of his preparation with the game's developer 343 Industries. "We talked about the characters and the world, so I never felt limited by it being a game." Huge mistake. Huge mistake. You have this situation where the only reason this show is getting made is because of the video game. These shows have to have some nod to the gamers. They can't just be their own thing and ignore things in the video game. It's just not, it's actually super disrespectful. It's just disrespectful to the only reason you clowns got this budget for this show is because of the gamers. And you should have spent a lot of time playing the game and understanding and watching streams of people playing the game, watching hype of people playing the game. And you see a lot of the discourse around it. Now, they read the books and they used the books to, figure out the lore. But what they did is they changed the plot from the books and rewrote how Master Chief even went through the Spartan program, made it much worse. You see, rather than viewing Master Chief's opaqueness as a hurdle, Halo makes the character ignorant of his past. His memory has been erased, emotions chemically suppressed. So the question of who is Master Chief becomes a journey for Schreiber's character as well as the audience across the debut's season's 9 episodes as he finds himself defying orders to protect a young girl. Here's 2,500 likes. "What's with the obsession of trying to make video game movies for anyone but the people who would actually be interested? Just research the dang game." 3,200 likes. "Talked about the characters in the world, completely missed the mark on the characters and the world so hard they had to make it non-canon, separate timeline. Lamau." Paramount talking about the world and characters just to change it to the point of it being non-canon. The Halo universe characters and lore, whoa. Paramount showrunners this is worthless. I mean, Sonic is being brought up as a great example of like understanding the video game. It's not like Sonic is running the courses or the maps that he would in the video game, but it's like it's actually loyal. It feels loyal when you're watching it. 5,000 likes. We didn't look at the game. We didn't talk about the game. Thanks for telling me this is going to suck. And the early reviews actually are in, and it looks like it does suck. Halo TV reviews are in, and critics are comparing the series to The Mandalorian, but not in a good way. Collider, B-. Entertainment Weekly, C-. IndieWire, C. It's The Mandalorian. It's The Last of Us. It's Logan and Leon the professional in space. It's the story trope that's trendy, in the ether, but never wears out as long as the stories are exciting, fresh, and smart. Quote, Halo doesn't excel at all those qualities. Nauseating CG aliens dull the show's action. It's a bad sign when the game's live-action trailers from over a decade ago feel more visceral than the actual series. None of its ongoing plot seems to think beyond the heartstrings. The show's many mysteries remain locked behind the Abrams-esque mystery boxes, which feel like an obligation in the streaming area more than a purposeful creative choice. Entertainment Weekly. There are trees smaller than Schreiber, but his performances have a wiry, small guy energy, like James Cagney woke up one morning in the body of an Eastern European power forward. Master Chief isn't a completely thankless role. He shows you his face more than you'd think. But any actor would have shrunken inside the Spartan mega armor. The plot shines the light of Chief's background, and here I worry the makers of Halo are just arriving late to the party. Here's the story of a famous helmeted space warrior battled by sad youth flashbacks who pair up with a compass who melts his cold heart. It's The Mandalorian without the pucks. What is The Mandalorian without the pucks? And if you look at the actual reviews on Rotten Tomatoes, they're just as bad. You even have Grace Randolph, who is much maligned in the YouTube community as a voice of reason, writing extremely generic sci-fi and incredibly different from the source material in ways that are simply not justified. This just doesn't cut it in the ultra-competitive streaming arena. And this is going to be a disaster for Paramount. The amount of money they spent, where is it? I think it was, I want to look it up. It's either 10, yeah, with a budget running more than $10 million per episode. Already renewed for season 2. Well, of course, they stuck all this money in. Being renewed at that is not even like a point. It's currently sitting at a 59 with the critics. And here's somebody who gave it a positive. Let's just look at the positive review. Halo is a shameless derivative, but it's fun to watch. It's like TV MA version of Star Wars. It's Steven Spielberg produced blockbuster show that feels more like it came from his pal George Lucas. And they gave it a less than a 7 out of 10. I don't see much in these early episodes to make investing in a full season worthwhile. Halo does not come remotely close to any of the other sci-fi fantasy series out there and represents yet another mediocre video game adaptation. Maybe like actually listening to the gamers and understanding, you know, what matters and what's important about the game, understanding the soul of the fandom. This is something that seems to be continually ignored by a lot of these video game adaptations. Maybe somebody out there could maybe consider doing that. The drama comes on strong with the ambient technobabble and bureaucratic realism. It's as thrilling as a meeting. C-. It's exactly what you'd expect. While Halo features a few minor pivots in these early hours, there's very little to spoil and even less to spark curiosity that's not already present. But the only people that were presently interested in it like the video game. And when you tell them it's nothing like the video game, they're just going to opt out. We've been burned too many times before. Gamers continually, like, if you watch The Witcher, do you feel like you're watching the video game play out in real life? Or do you feel like you're watching Game of Thrones with a Witcher paint coat, a coat of paint? I love Henry Cavill, and I don't think The Witcher is like a garbage show, but it just makes me feel like a little piece is missing. That connection that you would have if you cared a little bit more about the video game. Now, The Witcher, of course, we have books and things like that. We have, we have a lot of lore to go through, and that's one part of the fandom. But to completely ignore or minimize even the real reason you're making it, the real reason it's getting made, is just, it's hubris. It's just yet another set of Hollywood writers that think they know better than everybody else, and that they're going to go out there and use a property and then pretend like they did it all on their own. It's the same thing you see when they have, like, when they bring back She-Ra, and these pink-haired lunatics are like, yeah, well, we're calling it She-Ra because nobody cares about our Tumblr fan art, and then we're just going to package our Tumblr fan art as She-Ra, and it's going to suck. It's the same thing with Masters of the Universe. Kevin Smith admitted publicly he was no fan of He-Man or Masters of the Universe. He went back and lied and pretended like he was, and he felt that all the way through the show. It was a He-Man veneer-covered, generic, woman, strong, independent woman story. I feel really sad for fans of Halo that this is happening to them, happening to something they love. It happens all too often, but it's good to see that critics are at least not blowing smoke and they're trying to be honest about it. I hope you enjoyed this video. We'll talk to you again real soon.